doing well. So this program is called Skills That Builds. And now a little play on the fun grammar of life. What we're trying to do is build those skills that often sleep in our practice into making them work in poses that we need to utilize to create more space to fly off into inversions, to create more space to float around in our practice and strength. Now, I'm teaching you these drills to give you homework to do between your practices to build those skills, so when it comes to your practice, suddenly things are just clicking into place because you have put in the homework, the understanding and awareness building of muscles through these types of movements to create a more sound practice. Also, doing these types of movements as drills is going to create the practice as a safe practice where you won't over push the mark and potentially end up towards an injury of your shoulder or your wrists, because what you're doing is creating a structural strong practice where you understand that there's certain things required in each pose to give you what you need. So we're starting with day one, and just a little bit of information. In each pose we have what's called slack lines. Now that means that the energy runs smoothly from one end to the other. So the right and left sides are pushing away from each other to create a solid slack line. If you're walking on a tightrope, you'd be able to walk on this one, but a lot of us create poses with slack lines that are looking like this. And we're wondering why we can't fly up into Lalosana, crow to handstand, or we're wondering why we feel so heavy in our practice, or we're wondering why our wrists are hurting. Now, it's very important to understand each pose has those certain duo lines. Now, with those duo lines, that allows us to create energy that is floating directionally through the body to create more strength and more solidity. Now, when we don't have those energies running directly, say for example the slack line is from my shoulder up into my palms of my hands, if this slack line is bent like this, the energy is going to go out the elbow and there is no energy coming up and strength, solid structure coming up into the wrist, which could mean that I could hurt my wrists. I'm not engaging my muscles correctly to protect all my joints in my shoulders. But when I push all the way up, I create the energy forming from my shoulder all the way up to the palm arch. Then I am able to protect my shoulder joint, protect my wrist joint, because the energy is forcefully going through safely in my body and to the right areas of my body to create poses correctly. When I'm creating, for example, a handstand like this, it's going to create a lot of other pressures in the joints and the bodies, and without that energy going directionally properly, it can definitely lead to injuries, or it'll lead to you not being able to achieve certain poses that you wish you could achieve. So let's get started. This, remember, is a homework practice. So you're going to do your practices, and then maybe you're going to have time during the day or at the end of the practice and you're going to add these skills on. The first day, day one, which is today, we are going to do jumps into handstand. I'm going to show you the more advanced style and I'm going to show you the more beginner style. So we all have to start somewhere. It's not where we start, it's where we're heading to. First things to note, when we're doing handstand, we always have the duo line that's going from the feet to the crown of the head. Also, you can look at duo lines that are going from the shoulders to the palm arch to protect the wrist and the shoulder joint. You could also make the duo line shorter, which is a force going from your sit bones to the crown of the head, and then your feet to your sit bones, okay? So my feet to the sit bones means that in handstand, you'll basically be having the Tadasana style, mountain pose style, to create the unifying lines of going opposite direction, okay? Now, what you can see is my feet are actually going on the ground instead of pointing. When we first learn, it's better to create this movement of your feet to create the right energy force to lessen pressure throughout your body and other joints. It'll also help you not to stick out your bum, so you won't have that solid line that a lot of us miss when we're doing handstand, or also if we are not doing that correctly, then we could also potentially hurt our wrists. And with that, if we don't have our bum in line, we don't have our wrists and our shoulders in line, so the force is going to go everywhere, and our stability in this pose, as well as safety, is going to be very limited. So I always like to think of
A lot of people say the handstand you're relying is definitely the major one is from the crown of the head to the feet. But let's also make it, so make sure you think your feet are pushing through the wall or the roof or the floor. But I also like to make it that we shorten it so we have a little bit more stability, because sometimes when it's so long we forget about our core. So from the sit bones to the feet and the feet to the crown of the head. Now this is all new information, so be mindful of it. So to create the one that is going from the sit bones to the crown of our head, we are going to have to utilize the core engagement, and we're going to have to utilize, when we're having our palm arch to shoulders also engaged in this, the integrated arms, which means all muscles are working to protect your joints and your wrists and your shoulders, and your hands are creating a palm arch, not a flat hand. So fingers will be spread and your palm will be slightly up. Now if you don't have a palm arch, my hand is just going to lax off down here, and you can see there's no strength or control in this arm. But with the palm arch, you can see it's not a flippy floppy arm. There's a lot of muscular contraction. In fact, in my shoulders, I can feel it across my chest, my back, my core, and all the way through my arm, not just one side. With the flat hand, you can also see my shoulders. This is dropping a little bit compared to this one because there's no engagement. So the first thing you must work on is your palm arch, and then having your core utilization along with the legs. Now the legs, where we're going from the heel to the sit bone, won't be utilized too much because we're jumping into the space. But just keep that in mind as you're practicing. If you're feeling a little flimsy somewhere, think about those lines, those slack lines in your body, and think, okay, oh, I see my arms are not wrapped in. I don't have the full engagement of the integration of my muscles in my arms. Let me work on that to make it more stable. Or I can feel my bottom pushing back. Okay, I need to pull my hips forward so the feet to my sit bones is a little bit more in line. And these will help you to find that engagement. Now, there's several different jumps we're doing. I'm going to show you the advanced and intermediate beginner. And with these jumps, you are going to do your best to do 10 reps of each. And this is like a every couple of days you'll practice it. So fingers down, wrap your arms in to integrate your arms to protect your shoulders and wrists. Make sure your palm arch is on, so the gecko hand, so the fingertips are pushing down and there's no flatness in the palm of the hand. There's a little bit of like a suction cap going on. Remember, wrap those arms in to create stability, and coming up into your downward dog. Heels can be down or heels can be up with legs bent. Push your sit bones to the sky and just feel a nice strong stretch just for a moment. Now from here, fingers spread, keep them firmly pushing down. This is your pause button. If you start to bend your elbows, you're going to head towards the ground and you're not going to be able to jump up into space. The first one we're going to do is to jump into ball. From here, we're going to keep those hands firmly pushing down, wrapping those arms in. We're going to come onto our tiptoes, bend our bottom towards the ground, but keeping our sit bones up so it doesn't fall down. That means you're going to feel your abductors, your inner legs working, engaging it through the knee. And you're going to push through and spring up and hold in a ball. Now you could hold for a small second like that. As you get more control, what your aim is to do is to hold for longer and keep going up until you hold for longer. Okay, and as you get longer, you can start to play with your head and put it down, okay, and then come down. So your aim is to do 10 reps of your level, either fast jump ups or slower jumps up with head movement. Now for absolute beginners, come to this position where your feet are much closer, and what you're going to do is you're just going to spring up, hit your bottom with your heels potentially, and come back down. Doesn't necessarily have to hit. And what you might find, you get more control. Oh, there I stay a little bit longer. And as you get a little bit more control, step back towards your downward dog. So that's number one. Number two is into diamond. Number three is into frog. Number four is into pike. And number five is single leg. So you're going to do 10 reps of each. And you're going to choose whether you want to start where your feet are close and you're just springing up, or you're going to jump from your downward dog. So the second one is a diamond. Always utilize the same movements to create the stability first. And you're going to jump up and bring your feet together and come down. Remember exactly the same movements, a quick down or a fast down, or a slow down, sorry. Pushing up through your hands, pushing away from the round, wrapping your arms back, and if you want to, bring your head down and slowly coming down. The same with beginners. You're going to start up nice and close again, coming onto your tiptoes and swinging up, a little clap and down, a little clap and down, or maybe you hold it a little longer. That's up to you. Following here is the frog pose. Now with the frog pose, we're going to start with wide legs actually, and we're going to jump. The frog is going to end up like this in the handstand, so we're just going to start in the same movement pattern. So our downward dog with wide legs, into the frog position, and then springing on up, holding frog position. Remember, short holding is a good start, or longer holding, or even longer holding with your head movement. It's entirely up to you, okay? You can choose. Frog holding, legs are wide, getting a nice hip stretch. The same for beginners, starting up nice and close and jumping up, okay? The difference between a frog and the diamond is the feet aren't coming together. Creates a little bit more hip work and hip engagement as well. So you're having to utilise the feeling and understanding your feet in space where they're creating different types of movement away from centre of gravity. Now the pike, that gets to be a little hard. So there's a few options here. We can do fast spring up to pikes without any hold. So pike and do 10 reps like this without any hold. Or you can slow it right down and try and find your control. Jumping up, holding for a second, maybe moving your head before you're floating back down for more advanced. For beginners, this one's a pretty tough one, so you're going to take it to where you can get it. You're going to start with your legs together closer to your hands, so not in that downward dog. Jump up and down. You may not even get the full V, it's the point of feeling it, okay? So, jump up. You're going to have to do a real spring through those legs and push up. Now, if you want to, if it makes it a little bit easier, you can also utilize a wall here, okay? So, pushing up into the pike, coming back down, swapping legs. That's another alternative, okay? Making sure your hips are over your hands. Now, as you get that, if you want to practice the come down, get a little bit closer to the wall, find your distance, come into your pike and float down. And slowly you get more and more control, okay? Now the last one is single leg jump up. So from here, lift your leg up in the air, one leg at a time, 10 reps. From a downward dog single leg, up into handstand, holding here. You can come down quickly, you can move your leg and coming back down, okay? Or you can jump up, jump down, faster if you want, okay? You could do both slow and fast. For beginners, come closer, bend your knee, that's on the top leg first, and all you're going to do is spring up, okay? Spring up. If you feel stability, straighten the leg and then come down. So there's your exercises for day one. You're definitely going to feel it in your shoulders and core. Make sure you stretch out afterwards, even your hips. Maybe do a few puppy poses. This is great for your shoulders after. It's very important that you open up as well as strengthen up. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I come and join me for day 2 soon. Remember, put it in your homework and away you go, watch those skills grow. Ciao!